Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and a warm welcome to this EMIC webinar. My name is Fiona Costello, and it's my pleasure to be your host for today's chat. I'm particularly excited about today's session because we have the opportunity to explore important topics surrounding autism and the experiences of individuals living with autism. Today, the topic is Empowering Autism, Discover the SAM and SAM Junior app for stress management. Stress recognition and stress self-management are key factors in improving well-being, especially for people with autism. For many on the autism spectrum, identifying and effectively managing stress can be particularly challenging due to sensory sensitivities, communication needs, and unique cognitive processing. The SAM Stress Autism Mate app is a powerful, scientifically validated tool developed in total co-creation with individuals with autism to help manage daily stress and improve coping skills. Co-production is so important. When we think about apps and when we think about what makes somebody continue to use an app, it's generally because it resonates with them as an individual and their experiences and their needs. So those apps that prioritize co-production, prioritize the voice of those with lived and living experience, generally have a much better success rate in terms of the usability of the app, the accessibility of the app, and ongoing sustained usage. So our panelists from Yvette Roque and Alvin van Asselt are passionate and tireless in their work to improve stress management for those living with autism in a neurotypical world. You'll hear from each of them soon, but first I have a few quick points to mention. Firstly, feel free to share your current location or area of interest. To do so, you can click on the three dots next to your name tag, choose edit and add your country or area. We love to see where you're dialing in from. This allows you to connect with others who share similar interests. If you have any questions for the panelists during the webinar, please feel free to post them in the chat box. During the Q&A session, I will do my best to include as many of them as possible in our discussion, and I will keep reminding you as we progress through today's webinar. And finally, today's webinar is being recorded, and the EMIC team will soon share the recording in the Knowledge Bank. So it now gives me great pleasure to briefly introduce our first speaker, Yvette Roque. Yvette Roque has been a psychiatrist at GGZ Centraal, the fourth largest psychiatric hospital in the Netherlands, since 2001. An innovator and researcher, she earned her PhD in 2013, focusing on prolactin-related side effects of antipsychotics in children with autism spectrum disorder. Post-PhD, Yvette developed SAM, Stress Autism Mate, an e-mental health app for ASD self-management. She won the Health Valley Bridge Prize and Tenzinger Healthcare Smart Innovation Award in 2021, and SAM earned a Bronze Award from VGZ in 2022. Her team also created SAM Junior for young people with ASD and One East app for those on mental health care waiting lists. These apps, co-created with lived experience individuals, are scientifically validated, secure, and available in 7 languages. Yvette, welcome. We're really looking forward to hearing from you today.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction. Can I take it away now? Yes, I think so. So first I want to share my screen because I want to share some slides with you. Put it in the right mode, like this. So thank you so much for the opportunity to tell something about SAM, our Stress Autism Mate. It's our mission to reach out and help as many people with autism as possible and support them to deal with the stress of daily life. But how did we get there? Well, that's a personal story. As a psychiatrist, I soon realized that in my desk, in my office, it's really difficult to understand the struggle people have in daily life. And I lost a boy. He was just about 21, as he couldn't handle all the little things life throws at him, and he ended his life. This for me was so hard that I thought, well, we need to do things differently. We need to understand the patterns of stress in daily life and all the little things that accumulate and make the life difficult. So with 15 people who are in therapy with me, we together thought about what can we make what kind of tool do you need to see the patterns and to have a better quality of life? Oh, my screen will flop if I am too slow. So we try to make an app which will be accessible to all, and it increases the need for self-reliance and self-sufficiency, and also it will bridge the gap between therapy and daily life. So how did we did this? We did this by thinking about how current treatment falls short. The treatment is not specialized in dealing with stress, and stress is an accelerator, a catalysator to making things worse. Sleep will worsen, complaints will worsen, and everything will be in a downward cycle. So if we do something about signaling your own patterns of stress of daily life, then things will be better. We co-created the SAM app with 15 people with autism who were my clients, but also with their loved ones. After we created the app, which I tell you something about shortly, we had an ongoing co-development with over 300 people in the Netherlands in our SAM panel, and we call them SAMbassadors. With them, we currently keep on developing and improving the SAM app to their needs. So everything in the SAM app, the feel and look, the language, all the visual things, all the questionnaires, they're all co-created with people with autism. How does the SAM app work? It works with questionnaires. You can ask 2, 3, or 4 times a day to get a questionnaire from the SAM app. The SAM app will then ask you about your activities you have been undertaking for the past 4 hours. After that, the SAM app will ask you 7 validated questions about stress. Stress is a really difficult concept, but if you set it out in 7 questions, which we did and validated with people with autism, then you will have a good understanding of the stress level. The app also will ask you if the stress level is correct. This is really important. After the calculated stress level and that it's been correct, you get a personalized stress reducing advice tip. As you can see in the screen, it's in colors. But you can also make it in light blue to dark blue mode, because people with autism don't always tend to like the traffic colors. So you can personalize the time at which you get the questionnaire, you can personalize the colors, and you can personalize the answering in emoticons, yes or no. You put in your own stress tips, and if you don't know what your stress tip is, then you can make use of the stress tip we incorporated with the people with autism who developed the app. Scientific research we have been undertaking since 2021 until now. We have 2 quantitative finished studies, single case experimental design studies. The first study with the people who helped develop the SAM app. This is not, we thought, well, this is a good study, and it showed significant results in reducing stress and enhancing coping mechanisms, but it's with the people who helped develop the app. So after this, we did another study, a single case experimental design study with 34 participants. We had 2 dropouts, and they showed stronger results. We also did a qualitative study in which we got an understanding of what the working mechanisms are of the stress autism mate. The overall conclusions of these investigations were that using of the SAM app supports people with autism in daily life in recognizing, gaining insight into, and applying adequate coping in daily stress. They had a 30% less perceived stress level and a doubling of coping skills. The coping skills went from passive, for example, drawing back or getting angry, to active, seeking help, support of other ones. Because if you use the SAM app, you can make people see what is going well in your life and what is going less well. So you have a lot of little hooks at which you can change something in the patterns. So people can self-manage, and self-manage is a key to better life. And if they want, they can seek help, and then they get help in seeking a better life. We have a lot of scientific research upcoming. 2 randomized control studies, one by the Dutch Autism Register and one by the University of Düsseldorf in Germany. We have a single case experimental design study upcoming from Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia, and also a qualitative study done by the Digital Psychiatry Center in Odense, Denmark. And Finland has just reached out to start other studies with the SAMapp. So we're trying and developing and gaining more evidence on the effects of the SAMapp. Something about the app availability and privacy. That's of course really important. The SAMapp is available at the moment in 33 countries, most of which are in Europe, but also Australia, New Zealand and Canada. And I'm open to making the SAMapp available in more countries, but we need a good ambassador and a good relationship with some people who have access to people with autism in the designated countries. So if you want to, please let me know and we can make arrangements. At the moment, we have 7 languages in the SAMapp: English, Dutch, German, Ukrainian, French, Danish, and Turkish. And that is because people in those countries reached out to us and asked if the SAMapp could be in their language, and they helped us translate SAM to their language. We are privacy proof. SAM has more rules to it than just the GDPR. We protect our data as being medical data because the SAMapp is owned by a mental health institute for which I work, GGZ Centraal in the Netherlands. So this is really important, a really important part also for people to use the app. We also have an ORCA baseline review, which all these technical aspects are visible at our website at www.stressautismmate.nl. So SAM was a success in the Netherlands. Then the young people with autism asked, well, the SAMapp is not just fit for me, the language is a bit off, the activities are a bit rigid. So could you please make an app that's also suited for us, the young people with autism? They had different wants and needs. And they wanted more flexibility, a longer availability of the questionnaires, the other activities, primarily school activities. They wanted personalization also on the activities, not just a rigid list, but putting them in themselves. And also, of course, other stress questions and other advice in there. So with 15 young people with autism, we started the same co-creation process in a design thinking manner and just prototyping from paper until we were able to put it in a prototype app and then the beta version. And the SAM Junior app is now under research also to the quantitative research, the single case experimental design, which we are conducting, and also the qualitative study. Then in Denmark, there was a usability test of the SAMapp, and I'd like to share some quotes with you from people that use the app there. Someone with autism said, it's not much harder than using Facebook, which I think is a great compliment. The SAMapp is universal, everybody can use it. I hope a lot of others can also benefit from the SAMapp. It's user-friendly and simply designed. And I imagine that it might be good if the app disturbs, so I'm reminded to take care of myself. So these are the quotes of the people using it in Denmark. Well, then it was really short, but I had to stay in time. I want to thank you for your attention about me explaining the SAMapp a bit. And I'd like to give the word back to Fiona so she can introduce our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Yvette. That was a really powerful and moving story that kind of created the foundations of SAM. And we will have time for questions. So for those who have joined us this morning, if you want to ask questions, do encourage you to use the chat functionality. The second speaker, Alvin van Asselt. Alvin prevented college attendance. Frustration with the quality of mental health care led him to pursue a career in the field, earning an associate degree as an expert in experience in 2018. Since then, he has worked in various roles for mental health care providers, both as a counsellor and in advisory capacities. Alvin joined the SAMapp project during a research internship to obtain an MSc in clinical psychology, graduating cum laude in 2024. Currently pursuing a PhD at GGZ Central and the Frisch University, he studies the effects of the SAM Junior app and rejection-sensitive dysphoria, a term describing heightened social pain in response to rejection or criticism common in autistic communities. Alvin is dedicated to amplifying the voices of the autistic community through high-quality participative research. Alvin, we look forward to hearing from you. And we now give the floor to you, Alvin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Yes, indeed, I am Alvin. I hate small talk because I'm autistic, so let's get right into it. I just have huge issues understanding what the heck stress is. Like, for a lot of my years in my life, I just felt terrible. I didn't know what's going on. I even felt suicidal at times. And I was just like, well, is this fear? Is this what people call stress? Is this just being too tired, not having eaten enough? Is this maybe a trauma response? I just didn't know what was going on. And that made my life really hard, especially if you look at neurotypical people. They just talk about stress as if they immediately understand what's going on with them. And even when they communicate with other people, they immediately understand each other when they say things are stressful. And having co-occurring alexithymia, which is really common in autistic people, I just didn't have that skill. So, well, if you don't know what the root of a stressor is, you also don't really have the capacity to do anything about it. But even more importantly, you're not always able to communicate your own needs. For instance, for a lot of times in my life, I sought mental health treatment, and I just came there and told people, well, I feel terrible, please help me. But then they asked, well, what's going on? And I just said, I don't know. I feel terrible. And well, I learned that practitioners just aren't usually skilled in even helping people find out what exactly is going on and what their needs are in the first place. So it was truly debilitating that I couldn't recognize my own stress patterns. And that's where the SAM app came into my life. And I don't want to make this a 10-minute advert at all. I have a huge justice sensitivity, so I don't really want to manipulate you into thinking that SAM is a great and excellent tool, because there are still ways to improve it. And I'm really looking forward to improve the app with the team. But even in the current state, it already helped me really recognizing these stress patterns. Because I started using the SAM app, and within a couple of weeks, I started noticing this pattern. Every time I worked out, I had a green bar, which meant I had less stress. And indeed, the SAM app said it was helpful to reduce my stress levels. And I always knew this. I always associated working out with less stress. But when I started looking at the app and the daily overviews in the app, I started noticing that a couple of hours after my workouts, I always had deep red scores. And indeed, those were the moments I started having this terrible feeling I couldn't really comprehend. And I never truly linked it to working out, but the app made me do that. So I started Googling, I started figuring out what was going on. And I noticed that well, when I work out, I always think I'm at the Olympic Games. So I do everything in my power to beat my personal best, beat my records, just go on a run for 2 hours with an average heart rate of 175. And on the short term, yes, indeed, it does release a lot of endorphins, and it makes you feel proud about yourself. But on the longer term, it causes so much cortisol, so many inflammations that well, made me realize, oh, so that's what stress is. And that was a revelation for me. For the first time, I realized that this feeling was just stress, and that it will fly by, and that it wasn't the end of the world, and that I wasn't going to feel like that forever. And that already helped me so much. And then in the weeks after that, I started noticing some more patterns. For instance, when I didn't eat well enough, I was a little bit more in the red. But also talking about presumptions. I always thought that socializing would always cost me a lot of energy and was the source of stress. But I noticed when I was talking to other neurodivergent people, it could reduce my stress levels. So it made me reach out to those people more. And it made me realize, well, if I'm talking to these people, I feel better. And it also helped me gain more social support. And that in turn helped me to lower these stress levels once again. So in other words, the SAM app helped me to start a chain of events, which just helped me improve my own quality of life. And maybe most importantly, improve my autonomy. I finally felt a little bit more in control over myself and over my own feelings and emotions. So I am truly happy that I'm now part of the SAM team and able to improve that application together with them. I only have a small role because I always want to involve as many community members of the people on the neurodivergent spectrum as much as possible. But through doing research, as an autistic person myself, people always say research is objective, but there's always some sort of information going on that needs to be interpreted. And being able to do it as a person on the spectrum who can also understand the feelings of other people on the spectrum, I truly believe I can make the app a little bit better. For instance, I'm really looking forward to the possibilities of AI in the future, because, well, maybe you've been listening and you started realizing I am an analytical person. I am one of those people who is able to understand these patterns. But maybe there are people on the autistic spectrum who have a little bit more needs with regards to that. And I'm really looking forward to possibilities to help them through the app to improve these recognition patterns. And second, I'm also really looking forward to ways to reduce stress levels in the app directly. For instance, with mindfulness exercises you can do, or breathing exercises, which is something that a lot of users of the applications also told me they really wish that to, well, make it just a little bit smaller step to go from a stress tip, which is giving into the app, to actually performing that. So yes, I think there's still a lot of ways to improve the app even further. And finally, when I come to the end of my little ramble, I do wish to make one important note, and that is what's often being said in the neurodivergent community, that e-mental health is excellent and can sometimes replace traditional mental health care treatments, but doesn't always do that. For a lot of autistic people, it's often important to talk to someone, to feel safe with someone, to feel welcomed by someone after having had a life of frequent rejections. So I'm also really wish to stress to end up that the SAM app is not a full-on replacement for traditional mental health care, but can be a replacement for some people, reducing the time needed in mental health care, or even preventing them from needing mental health care. But that it should still coexist next to traditional mental health care with practitioners. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed my talk, and I'm really looking forward to answering all of your questions.
Thank you so much, Alvin. Alvin and Yvette, if you just want to come back, and then I can kick off the questions, and then we will move to questions from the audience. So if the audience can now ask questions. I know that there have been a few questions already, but please do maximize this amazing opportunity that we have to hear from Yvette and Alvin. To kick us off, Alvin, I was really struck by your comments about understanding and recognizing stress and stress as a term, and the difficulties in recognizing stress as stress and maybe not something else. how, in the co-production process, how did this influence the language used in the app, and also kind of how you've presented the app in order to recognize that kind of that difficulty?
Yes, thank you for your question. Well, that was a really a large issue because we started reading scientific literature on what is stress even. And we found about 7 different terminologies and explanations of stress. So we figured out, well, we shouldn't really focus on telling them what stress is, but what is stress to them. And that made us realize that even the stress questionnaire should be tailored to them. So we asked autistic people, well, what is stress to you? How do you recognize stress? And we used those questions and we built an algorithm to help them tell about their stress levels. And then we also, very importantly, as Yvette also said, we added this question, like the scores in the app, is that the same as you experience? And apart from giving users a way to reflect on their own stress levels, it also helped us improve our algorithm so that the stress scores are in line with the experiences of autistic people. So yes, it had a great role in how we tailored the app to the people we wanted to use the application.
Just going back to that point then, in terms of, because it is when you're completing the questionnaire, you do have that prompt to make sure that it's correct, what you're saying and how you're articulating, how you're feeling is correct. So that, from what you've said and Yvette said, is a really important part of the process to be able to get you to sort of sense check again your experience and whether it's quite summing up how you're feeling. Is that correct?
Yes, it's an excellent way to reflect on your own stress levels and to start this, well, this reflection process to realize, hey, what have I done the past hours that gave me that score or not? So yes, absolutely.
And if you're filling in the app and you have bad sleep or you were ill, then you will also get the algorithm to say that you have a lot of stress, but it's not about that. It's about the bad sleep or being ill. So it's really important that you have a check function, and people can then, if they say no, it's not correct, they can fill in what they think is happening. And with that answer, we can keep on improving the SAM app.
Amazing. And as part of that co-production process, what were some of the most surprising insights that you gained from individuals with autism during the creation process of SAM and also SAM Junior?
That's for me, I think.
Yeah.
I had a really lot of them. And I thought to myself, if you try to make a tool for end users, in this case, people with autism, you never do it right because there's so much things you need to think about. And most of the times, these are things you don't even would have thought about up front, because all the icons you use, they have to be just spot on. They have to be right. They have to just say one thing, and not like if you have an icon for help, but somebody with autism sees something completely different in it. You need to make sure that everything visually you use is clear to the people who are using your tool. And it's the same with the language. So we, neurotypical people, we tend to use a lot of confusing language. So it's everything in the app, I think, that went through people with lived experiences to make it a tool for them to use. And neurotypical people can use every tool. But people with autism, they can just use the tools that are really tailored to their needs. So I think that's so important. And so we have to do this by large groups, and with the 300 people now involved, they still pick up these little things that are not correct, and we try to make it better.
Yeah, I mean, because autism is a spectrum disorder,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested. You're talking about 300 people. Did you
Yeah.
find that even in that group of 300 people, there was a general consensus, or was there a job to do to find consensus, taking into account
No.
those different needs and
Yeah.
preferences of users?
Yes, if there were, if it was not concisive, are you still seeing me or?
Yes, yeah, we can
Oh
see you
yes,
and
sorry,
hear you.
your image was tested. Then we had the option to do both. For example, with the color schemes in SAM, the traffic color was good for about 70% of people, but 30% of the group just couldn't live with that color scheme because green is to them it's underbore. It's not a good color, or it's too bright in coloring. So they loved the blue tones. So we said, well, we need to make these two options, personalize it on the color scheme. So if there wasn't a unity in answer, we tried to find a way to incorporate it in making choices within the app. And if that was not possible, then we had sometimes had to discuss, for example, the questions 2, 3, or 4 times a day. First, we had 4 times a day only. So there's a group of people using SAM who just want to do 4 times a day. They don't want to do 2, 3 times. But we can add the option. So the people who want to do 4 times a day can still put in 4 times a day, but then there's the option for the other people. Because at first the SAM was developed for people who were in clinical treatment. So this is a different group than all the people now using SAM, most of them who aren't in treatment. So we have to be flexible and make it suitable for everybody with autism.
So essentially, individuals that are using the SAM app are able to kind of update their needs and their preferences, and then that will kind of consider then what the push notifications are in terms of asking those questions, or and does that influence the color as well, or is that just generally being
No, they
made
can do it
consistent?
in the settings menu. So sometimes we add something in the
Okay.
settings menu. You can say in the settings menu, you can choose emoticons or color schemes. So we try to make it as
A
smart as
great deal of
possible.
adaptability. Yeah,
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
And how has the app adapted its stress recognition and management strategies? And again, using needs and preferences for different age groups. And do you find that experience the same across, or was there different things that you needed to do for Sam Junior?
Well, for Sam Junior, we needed to do some things differently because they also the young people wanted the stress recognition button up front. So they have the opportunity to upfront get some tips about something they think will be stressful. So this we incorporated in Sam Junior. And they wanted more flexibility in choosing their own activities. So not the standard list, what is in Sam, but just personalizing more. So the young people wanted to be more personalized and also a different language and different stress signaling questions because they are a different group. So for them, the concept of stress is with other things. So every time you want to change the app or make another target group, you have to go back to that group and start all over again, basically. And you don't need to make a shortcut. You just do it right because that is what you have to do. So we also made an app that's not for autism, for health employees working in mental health care. We made an app for them. And also we made an app for people on the waiting list of mental health care. So this is an app not typical for people with autism, but for other people as well. And they're both in the Netherlands.
Fantastic. Thank you, Yvette. And what, Alvin, in your experience, in what ways has the app's approach to stress management differed from traditional methods that you might have encountered if you were not using the app? And why was that particularly beneficial? And if you can reflect on your own experience, I know you have done a little bit in your talk, but if you could just bring out that a bit again, that would be really helpful.
I often found other e-mental health tools a little bit invalidating. For instance, they were based on cognitive behavioral therapy. And if you're autistic, your whole life is about that your own views, your own thoughts, your own needs aren't right. That's what people tell you, and you have to change. And these apps were usually even making that stronger by pretty much telling you you're doing it wrong. You don't understand stress. You need to change this and that and that. You need to change your life to feel less stress. And it hurt me more than it helped me. And I think with the SAM tool, when I started using it, I just felt safe. I just felt heard. I wasn't required to do things that were difficult to me. So there's lots of talk about whether you can have a therapeutic or relationship with an application. Well, I felt like Sam was a nice person to me, and that made me already help a lot and want to use it even more.
But I think that's a really powerful way of describing it, as a nice person to you. I know from personal experience of living with individuals with autism that, you know, it can feel very binary. You either fit in or you don't. And that can be a very triggering experience. And so hearing what you're saying about, particularly with cognitive behavioral therapy, and then how that influences your sense of feeling heard and listened to, I think is a really important point that I think quite often is overlooked. Did you want to add anything, Yvette, in terms of how the approach to stress management differed from traditional methods from your view as a psychiatrist?
Yes, well, I think in the Netherlands we work with stress signaling schemes. I don't know if other countries do that as well, but you try to make a stress signaling scheme to see what goes well and what goes wrong in somebody's life. But this is really rigid and reactive. So the SAM app has the same principle, but it's doing it in a proactive way. So when you fill it in for like a week or 2 weeks, then you have your own, you can see your own patterns and your own tips. And we use it in treatment to fill out the stress signaling scheme. So people in our practice use the SAM app for 1 week or 2 weeks, and then we can fill out the stress signaling scheme. And that is a obligatory thing in the electronic patient file. That's some really bureaucratic nonsense sometimes, I think. But it helps the practitioner to fill it in, and it helps also to look with the client at the things they can improve or they want to work on, because communication is a difficult thing in therapy. So if you ask people how have you been doing for the past week, if people ask me, then I don't know. A week, it's what went well, what went wrong. I couldn't give a normal answer to that, but we expect our clients to do so. So with Sam, they can just say, look, if they want to share, because it's their data. But this went well and this went not so well, and let's talk about it. So that's why how we do it in treatment.
Yeah, which brings me on to my next question, actually. Obviously, the process has been how you have co-produced the app with autistic individuals, but I'm really interested to understand, and I'm sure the audience will be interested to understand, how has it influenced that relationship with the health and care professional, whoever that may be in that person's life? And have you had any of that feedback as part of any of the research and usability and accessibility work that you've done, and from a clinical perspective as well?
Yeah, well, it makes the relationship more horizontal. So it's more in a coaching way and an equal way than in the really more old-fashioned medical way. So I think it's much more rewarding to have that kind of relationship with your clients. And the practitioners at my office say the same. They like it because the people with autism get reinforced. They are empowered to do something with what they know now is going wrong or good in their life. So it's much more enjoyable or rewarding to be then in that alliance together. So most of the time people are really happy about it. But also there are people who don't like using apps and they have techno stress. So it's not all good news. So it's just it's a tool for people who like to use it, but for others it can be something that's stressful because they have to do it 2, 3, or 4 times a day. So that's also good to say. It's not all good, but it's just something you can use.
Yeah,
and
I think it's
reinforce
a great
people.
point around techno stress, and that moving to digital ways of working and moving to digital approaches to treatment can trigger individuals, and there is
Not for
that again a
everybody.
spectrum, yeah,
Yes.
again a spectrum of what is needed for different individuals at different times. Could you just explain how the scientific validation process for SAM was conducted? I know you gave in your presentation, there was a slide on it, but if there are any particular scales that you use, outcome scales, I think that would be really beneficial for the audience as well.
Yes, we use the perceived stress scale and the coping self-efficacy scale and the Q whole life breath quality of life scale. And we did so in a baseline period for a month. We did a lot of measures. And then people used SAM for a 4-week period, and we measured every week. And after the 4-month period, we measured it again in the follow-up phase. And then we had a lot of measuring points, and we didn't look at the stress answers in the app. We did it with questionnaires. So if you have a lot of measure points for the individual itself, you can compare it to itself, so you can know. And I think that's a really good way to do research on an individual way, what helps for one person and not for the other person. So we could see that the SAM app reduces the stress and enhances the coping. And we want to make sure we use the data in the app as well, but it's really complicated. So now we find a way to do network analysis. So you can see how the different stress levels influence sleep or activity. And that's also on an individual note. Because for one person, stress diminishes if they sleep more, but for the other, it's just, if I get more stress, I sleep less, or if I'm more, so you need to know for the individual what for him or her works. And it's not a group measurement. So I think this is the future, to look at individual things in research. And then you can give individualized advice. But to be honest with you, Fiona, I'm not a great analytic or epidemiologist. I have people doing that for me.
Okay.
So we have a professor at a university in Amsterdam who is involved in all our research, and he, with the one who's doing the primary research, helps them to analyze the data.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not smart enough to do that.
Yeah, I look at it and my head spins. As Alvin, I'm going to wrap up our part of the panel very shortly, but I loved what you were saying about the future of the app, and you opened saying that, you know, that you're not here to sell it as such, because it's still got lots of improvement, which I think is such a positive attitude to have. It should be evolving all the time. You talked a little bit about AI, but I was also wondering about whether you thought that there was room in the app to enable peer support and what that would look like.
Well, I can just start off with the easiest part, which we're also going to probably introduce in the near future, which are just stories, other autistic people. Just to give a feeling like, hey, there are more people who are struggling with what I'm struggling with. And sometimes it's just also more motivating to use stress tips that other people just tell, hey, it worked for me. So that's just a start. It's going to be really hard to really include a community or forum because it needs moderation, and that's going to be a little bit harder. But we do want to foster that connectiveness in the app. We do wish to involve videos of people talking about the app, maybe just helping you through the app, some sort of an avatar, perhaps to make you feel like you're not all alone. And we really also wish to link people with the autistic community, with other places in which they can meet other autistic people to talk about their stress experiences. Because as someone who really enjoys the social model of autism, not the medical model of autism, I find it so important that people get accepted and feel accepted into a community, into the world where they can be themselves. And I think that in the future, the app can also, while not giving face-to-face contact with people, it can still help people foster that connectiveness. And yes, I'm really looking forward to introduce these parts in the app.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing. I think you're right, actually. I think previously with a background at Orca and seeing different apps, I think that sense of community and enabling community, whether it's through peer support functionality, but as you say, sharing stories and sharing your lived experiences and how you've overcome difficulties is a really powerful mechanism. And I think that these are principles that should guide the development of all apps, actually. But I just think that you guys are doing it particularly well. I have a ton more questions, but I am conscious of time. So I'm going to now go to the questions that the audience have been asking as we've been talking. But for me, thank you. I've just been really enjoying that conversation. So I'm going to start at the beginning. The first question, and I think we've answered this, but can the apps be tailored to individual needs? And are there any customization options based on the user's stress levels or triggers?
Yeah, I think we answered it. You can customize it to a certain level of your own needs. And in the app, there's a difference between very serious stress and mild and moderate stress in the tip you gain. So there's just a little switch being made in the app. So if you have very stressful, you just get 1 tip for very stressful situation. And the other times you get 3 to 5 tips to choose from.
Brilliant. I think this is a great question. How does the app track progress over time? And are there metrics or reports that users or caregivers can view to monitor stress levels?
Shall I answer it, Alvin?
I can do it too if you want.
Yeah.
No, it is mainly a daily and a weekly overview in the app, which just shows all the colors you've gotten through the questionnaires over time. And that's mainly used because, well, lots of autistic people like to see things visually just to get an overview. And if 1 week you're more into the red and the other week you're more into the green, you can easily track your progress in the application. And I forgot the second part of the question. Could you repeat that, Fiona?
Are there metrics or reports that users or caregivers can view to monitor stress levels? So you can see
Yes, the daily and weekly overviews can be shared. We do think it's a great idea that users share it, but of course it's their own private scores. They don't have to share it. But we do tell them that it could maybe be an advantage to do so.
Yeah, with screenshots, they can easily provide a screenshot if they would want to.
Brilliant. But it's at the preference of the user whether they share it or not. It's not okay.
They shouldn't feel forced to share it because it could also influence the stress scores. They will answer the questionnaires. We don't want them to feel that pressure.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point as well, that you're in charge of what you share and what you don't. What evidence, Clyde has asked another question, what evidence supports the effectiveness of these apps in managing stress for individuals with autism? Have there been any studies or user feedback that demonstrate the impact? I think you answered this on your
in the slide.
clinical studies slide.
They can look it back. The references are in the slide from the studies that have been published. Our qualitative study is on the way, but it's submitted, not yet accepted. So.
Fantastic, thank you. And there's been a conversation about a phenomenon that many autistic people have, and it's alexithymia.
Yes,
I answered it. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Alvin. Another question, how can this app help caregivers create a personalized plan for young people or adults with ASD who live in a supported environment?
Oh, that's a really good question. We use it also there. It's like they fill in, if they want to use the SAM Junior app, then I think that's the app they want to use for young people, 12 to 18 years old. They can fill the app in, and then you get a kind of in Dutch we call it gebruiksaanwijzing. How do you call it, Alvin, in
Manual.
English? A manual.
A manual.
You get your own manual about what goes well and what doesn't. And with that knowledge, you can make a personal treatment plan with the individual with autism. But again, the young people with autism needs to see that as a good idea and it needs to be empowered to do it. So not in force, but in free will. So then it works really good.
Yeah,
Because you can only build your life if you know yourself and if you know what's good for you and you know what's not good for you. That's the start. And I think that's the best way to start. And then you can make little steps because people tend to go too fast also. So you have little wins. One little win, gain control of your life and find your purpose. Finding your purpose is about 80% of treatment. So I think we need to be more aware of that also.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you've described in terms of getting a young person on board with the idea of using the app and sort of identifying their needs, their preferences, and then being able to exercise choice and control, particularly in a supported environment, is so powerful. And I love that idea of a manual, a young person giving a manual to say, this is what I want. And I think it's very important, that sense of self and sense of ownership of self as well. I think we've got another question. Hello all, thank you for letting people know. I am curious as to what languages that you want to include in the future. I didn't see Spanish and Mandarin, Chinese, the list of languages that are available. It would be great to discuss the rights of people on the autism spectrum in places like Taiwan, Spain, and Hong Kong. So there you go. I think that.
Well, just get in touch with me. And if you want to provide the translation and work with us, yeah, it's possible. It's we go where people want it to be available.
Do you in that journey, Yvette, just thinking that, because the question at the very end is what will be the opportunities and challenges to develop the SAM app internationally? In your experience, have you found that different countries are on different starting points in terms of their approach to working with individuals with autism and how that influences their care and support? And to what extent has that influenced the use of the app? Does it help that journey?
Well, it's really difficult because every country has its own approach, and I can only talk about the countries we're now working with. But sometimes it's really through the practitioner. So in the countries, you go through the professor, and then through that route and research, the SAM will be first checked. And other countries do it by adapting to users, usability test, and people with lived experience take part in it. And that's my preference route, of course. But we have to do it the way the country wants it to be, because that's the only way it will work. But first, we need some people with affinity with people with autism, or people with autism themselves, who want to help us translate to the language of preference, for example, Spanish. We have all the Excel sheet, we have done the 7 languages, so we know how to do it. And if we have that, then it's really time-consuming process, of course. We have to incorporate it in the code of the app, or in the app itself. And then we have to do it, give it free in the App Store. So there's also a little bit of money involved. Not too much, but it will cost some money. And being a mental health institute, for me, it's difficult to raise all that money. So we have to look together if we can get a grant, or if there's somebody who wants to pay, like, I think translating it is about 5,000 euros. So it's not a big amount of money, but still it's money.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is that when you think about going into different countries, you have to understand and I guess respect the approach to care in a country. So whether it's down the route of professionals and academia, or whether it's you know, a country like Canada who's very committed to involving those with lived and living experience, and that will then direct your process moving forward. And it sounds like there is a sort of a co-creation in itself to make the app suitable for a specific country, and then there are the more technical details like the translation and the costs, those sort of operational costs that are involved, and that there needs to be some support with funding, because it is completely free at the point of contact and at the point of use, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, and it's really important to culturally adapt it with end users.
Yes.
So to the country,
yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're at 5 to the hour, so I'm going to wrap it up there. I think that was the final question. Yes, it was. And as Nikki has very kindly said, the recording of the webinar will be available online next week for anyone who wants to refer back to any of the information shared, particularly that clinical slide, and also has included the links to the app. So with that in mind, I would like to say, Anil, how many countries SAM has been deployed in? I think you said 30, didn't you?
33, yes, at the moment.
33. Wow. That's really incredible. 33 countries. As we're going to wrap up, I just want to say a massive thank you, Yvette and Alvin. It has been a real pleasure listening to both of you talk about SAM and SAM Junior today, and contributing so much value to what can be so often overlooked, and in kind of trying to kind of provide neurotypical approaches to care can be lived and living experience of autism. The insights into the SAM map and the importance of stress recognition and management for individuals with autism has been really helpful and enlightening. And I think I can join the audience to say that I have learned a lot from this webinar. So thank you. And it's inspiring to see how co-creation and user feedback have played such a pivotal role in developing effective tools for those with autism. Alvin, I'm really looking forward to seeing the future SAM app with your input and direction. I'm expecting some very exciting AI-equipped tools in the future, as well as the stories that you mentioned. So with that in mind, I encourage you all to reflect on the key takeaways from what Alvin and Yvette have been talking about today, and how you can apply them in your own lives and work. It's been such a pleasure having you with us. We can't wait to see you at our future webinars, and thank you to the audience for asking your questions. So a couple of minutes early, but have a wonderful day or evening ahead, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very, very much.